Hello and welcome to my Samurai Jack Retrospective. I'm your host, That Minnesotan Guy. The topic that I'll be discussing today regarding this video will be about childhood, both good and bad memories alike.
For those who are not aware, I grew up during a decade known as the 2000s. It is my personal belief that during this time, the last few good things happened before everything became crazier to the point where you have to scavenge for good material. I also believe that my glory days happened between the years 2000 to 2008.
Trust me when I say that I noticed signs of decline in society by the time 2009 started, and from there, things did not get any better.
One of the great things that came out between the years 2000 to 2008 was none other than Samurai Jack. I consider this show to be one of the greatest animated series ever put to screen. The show followed a samurai from feudal Japan who finds himself thrown into the future by the evil demon Aku after he tried to rid the land of his presence. The samurai later adopts the name of Jack and begins a long quest to find his way home in order to stop Aku before he could take over the world. The show only lasted for 4 seasons between the years 2001 to 2004, and has now been revived for a 5th and final season on March 11th of 2017.
The final season was supposed to come out last year, but they had to delay it in order for it to be polished. Though I was slightly disappointed by this decision, I do believe that greatness takes time. For the purposes of this retrospective, I will start from the beginning of the series and continue on to the end of Season 5. With Season 5, however, you might have to wait until it comes out on home video for me to review it.
Samurai Jack premiered on August 10th of 2001 as a pilot movie that basically put the first 3 episodes together. This video will cover all 3 of those episodes and what it was like for me to see Samurai Jack when it first premiered.
Now with the introduction out of the way, let us begin with Samurai Jack, the premiere movie.
We open on a desolate wasteland with a black tree being the only thing in sight. Suddenly, a solar eclipse occurs, and this happens. After the eclipse passes, we zoom out to reveal a shadowy figure with eyebrows made entirely of flame.
Once again, I am free to smite the world as I did in days long past.
Now this is how you start an episode. I like how the show already introduces the main antagonist and how he will be a big threat later on. Now for those who are not aware, that was Aku, voiced by the great Mako.
We then transition to a Japanese emperor telling his young son about how Aku ravaged his kingdom and that he was helpless against the demon's powers. The emperor later sought out 3 mystic monks who agreed to forge a magic sword to help him defeat Aku.
I'll go more into this when I review The Birth of Evil.
The emperor returned to his kingdom, defeated Aku, and imprisoned him in the wasteland that we saw earlier. He also states that through hard work, his people were able to move on from what had happened years ago.
Always be alert, my son, for the presence of evil is sometimes right behind you.
I really like what the Emperor tells Jack here. It shows that Jack looks up to his father, and as the series goes on, Jack is able to tell when evil is around him. Now trust me, you're going to be seeing a lot of that in this retrospective.
Not long after that, Aku makes a big entrance to signify his return. The Emperor's armies do their best to fight back, but Aku is too powerful for them. This is evident when he uses their arrows and spears against them. The Emperor attempts to retrieve the magical sword, but Aku grabs him.
Mother, Aku has returned. Do as we have planned. Our future depends on it.
The Emperor's wife follows his order and manages to escape Aku's wrath with her only son. They arrive at a ship bearing a symbol of their people, and the Emperor's wife hands her son over to them before fading off into the distance.
This scene is emotional because it shows that Jack is leaving his family behind and won't be able to see them again until he reaches adulthood. If this happened to me when I was a child, I'd pretty much have the same reaction that Jack had. Thankfully, though, I had a great childhood.
We then get our first montage of Jack spending his childhood and teenage years training for his ultimate battle against Aku. He first learns about astrology on the ship. I also want to state that the music in this first bit is beautiful. Just listen to it. We later transition to an Arabic culture where Jack learns about horseback riding. Then we move on to an African tribe where Jack learns about stick fighting.
Now, the African tribe bit was later expanded on in Season 4, which I'll get to when the time comes. Now, as a child, I also remember a game on Cartoon Network's website that basically covered 5 pieces of Jack's training. The stick fight scene was one of them. Come to think of it, I wonder if that game is still up.
Jack then travels to Egypt to learn about hieroglyphics. This part was briefly expanded on in Season 3. Once he arrives in Greece, Jack is taught how to wrestle. As he grows older, Jack learns archery from Robin Hood himself, seamanship from Vikings, axe throwing from Russians, spear throwing from Mongol tribes, and finally martial arts from Shaolin monks.
One more detail that I would want to mention from this montage is that every place Jack visits throughout his training has its own musical piece, and I especially like how they perfectly represent the various cultures. Not to mention, it's a great listen for the ears. Yeah, I'll be talking about the music throughout this entire retrospective because, believe me, Samurai Jack has one of the best soundtracks for any television show out there. Now, don't start any arguments with me.
Jack returns home and shares an emotional reunion with his mother. He then receives the magical sword, and after showing us his impressive skills, makes his way to the place where his father is held captive. We then see Jack's people being forced to mine for crystals that Aku wants for himself. The Emperor has grown old and is treated harshly by the guards. This is evident when he is given some water from a fellow slave.
Here's some water, my Emperor.
None for him!
Jack arrives and manages to take out all of the guards. After freeing his father, the Emperor states that once Aku has the riches of Japan, he will be able to take over the world. Jack assures his father that Aku will be defeated with the power of the sword. However, the Emperor has something very important to say.
I thought once like you, but the sword is only a tool. What power has it compared to the hand that wields it? Let the sword guide you to your fate, but let your mind set free the path to your destiny.
This scene is great because it allows the audience and Jack himself to understand that the sword is more than what it is. In fact, this scene could be applied to anyone who wields a mystical weapon. Thor!
I will not fail you, father!
Be wary, my son, for evil finds a way.
Now, I want you all to remember this because what happens next lives up to the foreshadowing that the Emperor gives us.
Jack makes his way across the land and arrives at Aku's lair. After finding his way across the platforms, he shouts this out.
Aku!
Aku then asks who has summoned him.
Who dares to summon the Master of Masters?
I am the lost son of the land that you have pillaged. I am here to reclaim it.
Aku dismisses Jack as no threat until he is cut with the sword.
I remember that blade. You are the son of the fool who imprisoned me those many years ago.
From here, we get our first fight between Jack and Aku. But believe me, there are many more battles after this one.
Aku first transforms into an ape-like creature, and after a few punches, manages to land a scratch on Jack. Jack cuts his hand off, and Aku then transforms into a scorpion. He tries to sting Jack, and gets his tail caught in the fiery growth. Jack cuts it off, and Aku falls into the dark pit. Aku emerges as a tentacled creature, only to get cut more by Jack. He grabs Jack, but the samurai proves to be swift. Jack gets the high ground, and Aku charges him as a goat. Jack cuts him in half, and Aku morphs into a winged creature.
I cast thee back to the vile pit from which you came.
Aku then lies defeated, and before Jack can end him forever, Aku reveals one last trick.
Aku!
Do not worry, Samurai. You will see me again.
I remember being terrified out of my mind watching Jack go through the time portal, mostly due to the fact that the image of someone contorting and stretching as they go through, yeah, that's not a good image to see, and it had an impact on me as a child. And while I'm not afraid of this scene as I once was, I still remember everything that happened when this episode came on. Now I'll be pointing out more in this retrospective because there are other things that I found scary throughout the series, and trust me, we got a lot to cover.
Jack exits the portal, only to find that there is a city beneath him. He manages to land on a few cars, but he gets sighted by an APB car. It fires and Jack is cut by a bullet. Jack then cuts the car and it crash lands in glorious fashion. Suddenly, a large trash compacting vehicle begins making its way to Jack. He manages to get to its top and lands safely in the street where he is greeted by 3 teenage pedestrians.
Yo, Jack, that was some awesome show!
I never peer to pump moves like that, Jack.
What? Jack was all ricocheting and jumpadelic!
I'm guessing that Jack is another word for bro or dude. Come to think of it. No, you know what? I'll let you decide on that. Besides, I gotta leave it up to the audience.
Jack thanks them and asks to know where he is. The teenagers tell him that he is in the central hub of Sector D. Jack asks who is in charge, and the teens reveal it to be Aku himself.
Aku? No! How can this be?
The teens tell Jack that he could use a drink, and they point out a nearby club to him. Jack knocks on the door.
What do you want?
Man, bouncer security really has gotten tougher in the future. Hold on a sec. Do they accept anyone who is 20 years of age? No? Well then.
Jack is granted entry, and I really like the visual detail of him covering his ears over the loud music.
I've never really been a big fan of blasting music, and it's amazing how I haven't gone deaf yet.
Jack then encounters an alien who doesn't enjoy being stared at.
And what you looking at?
Jack then looks around him and is shocked at how everyone is not human. Jack tries to apologize to the alien, but the alien only wants to fight. After cutting the alien's hand off, his friends attempt to fight Jack as well.
The still that you just saw was a great way to keep people excited until the premiere movie came back on from a commercial break.
We then cut to a trio of dogs asking an alien for help.
I think it's best if you make up your own mind on what the alien said.
The dogs are about ready to give up until they notice Jack. Jack avoids bombs from the alien pack and cuts their clawed hands off in the smoke. Impressed, the leader of the trio heads over to greet Jack. Jack mistakes the dog for a demon until he tells Jack that he is not evil. The dog offers to explain everything, and Jack accepts his invitation.
I like how Jack accepts this even though he is confused. Proof that his integrity is inspiring to all.
As they enjoy their drinks, the dogs introduce themselves as Sir Dreyfus Alexander, Sir Angus McDuffie, and Sir Colin Bartholomew Montgomery Rothschild III. The dogs explain to Jack that Aku has ruled the Earth for thousands of years, and that he has extended his power across the universe. This explains why there are aliens roaming freely. Jack explains that he is from the past, and the dogs figure this out with an age-o-meter. Jack figures that Aku flung him into the future, and now he must find a way back to the past. The dogs explain that they are archaeologists looking for answers about their kind's history. They eventually discovered rare crystals, and Aku enslaved them to uncover it all. After hearing about this, Jack decides to help them. The dogs ask who he is, and the samurai replies, "They call me Jack."
You may have noticed that I called the title character by his name instead of referring to him as the Prince. I figured that you all knew who Jack was and that I didn't need to bring it up. In fact, we don't know what Jack's real name is. I haven't exactly heard any theories about what Jack's real name is, and you know what? I think we're better off not knowing. Besides, I don't think that knowing his real name would have any impact on the overall plot.
Unbeknownst to Jack and the dogs, an alien waitress overheard their conversation and runs off to inform Aku about this.
My lord, we are the Vanaquas from the Mosconian galaxy. Our water planet has been pillaged, and all the oceans that were once our home are gone. We have searched long and hard to find a planet with oceans rich enough to sustain our people. and your world is our last hope for survival.
Aku grants the alien race permission to stay on Earth, but they will need to construct statues in order to avoid his wrath.
Now be gone!
The alien waitress tells Aku about Jack helping the dogs, and Aku is surprised to see him. The dogs use a rocket to get to their destination, and Jack is given a tour of their excavation site.
Now, there is a theory that the destroyed town is Townsville from the Powerpuff Girls. But you know what I say to that? No! I don't think that Samurai Jack and the Powerpuff Girls exist in the same universe. Now, can we please stop with that? Alright? Okay, then.
Jack sees what the dogs have to go through and relates this to his people going through the same ordeal.
I have seen Aku implement these atrocities before, but no more. Even dogs should not be forced to live like dogs.
A fellow dog then warns the others about an approaching threat, and it is revealed to be drones sent by Aku. Upon closer inspection, they are revealed to be Beetlebots.
Beetlebots? That's nothing! Throw in a pack of Waspbots, and that will really be a challenge. That came off a little weak. If you didn't laugh at that, I understand. I'm not trying to do comedy for the show.
How are you ever going to be able to defeat them?
I'll need some weapons.
Later that night, Jack inspects the material around him and comes up with a plan.
That's actually pretty funny. There will be more of that in future episodes. And now that I think about it, since Jack is going to be using future technology in Season 5, I wonder how those scenes are going to play out.
Jack tells his plan to the dogs, and they begin work right away. First, they use digging machines as catapults. Next, they use rockets as a way to blast the Beetlebots with fire. Jack then discovers how sharp the crystals are and uses them to make arrows and spears. The dogs then dig a trench filled with the crystals to act as a trap. Using licking machines, the dogs create pillars as another trap. Jack then sees an alien horse and decides to tame one of them. I like how he uses an apple. It's a nice callback to when he began training. Jack then creates a flag with the symbol of his people. The dogs walk over it, but Jack sees this as their symbol. Finally, armor is built for Jack and his alien horse. We end this montage with an epic shot of Jack in the horizon. The battle has begun.
I've seen great build-ups to many cinematic fights in my day. This is one of them.
That morning, Jack rides off to face the Beetlebots, and I really like this epic shot of him with the alien horse. The Beetlebots arrive and manage to knock down rocks in their way. Jack charges and fires some arrows to set off the catapults. Jack fires more arrows at explosive barrels, and he ends the last 4 arrows with direct hits. Jack then switches over to the spears and manages to score 4 direct hits.
Whoa, that must have been a lot of weight for him to carry. I wonder how strong Jack really is.
The alien horse manages to take out some of the Beetlebots, and Jack uses up his last few spears. The Beetlebots surround Jack and begin to stand upright. Working together, Jack and the alien horse bring the numbers of the Beetlebots down. One of the Beetlebots manages to knock Jack down, and his flag is cut up. Jack breaks free, defends himself from a few Beetlebot slashes, and manages to cut them up. The Beetlebots then start breaking his armor until Jack loses it all.
Alright now, Jack has 0 armor and 100% health. Oh, but don't worry about that. He'll be alright.
Jack jumps over the fire and lures the Beetlebots into the first trap. The pillars manage to take out a good amount. Jack then activates both rockets, setting the horde ablaze. After that, he lures the Beetlebots to the trench. The remaining Beetlebots then surround Jack as the dogs watch anxiously from the ruins.
Come on, Jack. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. Ooh, that's not good. Oh, but it's just a flesh wound. He'll be alright. He's okay, guys. He'll be alright.
Jack keeps fighting until this happens.
Now, the next few scenes involve Jack yelling in a rage. I remember being terrified of these when I was a kid because I hadn't seen that sort of thing in a cartoon at the time. Don't judge me. I was very young. I am used to them now.
Notice how the liquid coming out of the BeetleBots acts as if it is blood. The reason for this is because, at the time, the people working on the show had to find a way to get past the censors. The shot of Jack being covered in it makes him look intimidating as well. As more of the BeetleBots are cut up, we see the liquid spilling in wonderful detail.
Now picture that, but there's blood instead of black liquid. Can't wait to see what Season 5 does by adding more blood.
The BeetleBots attempt to escape, but Jack finishes them all. The battle ends with an epic shot of Jack holding his torn-up flag.
A good Sir Jack, 'twas truly a noble deed you have done today, and an historic victory most worthy of our logs.
With the dogs now free, Jack wishes them the best and sets off on his long journey. It turns out that Aku is watching the battle and informs us that he is watching 24/7 and that he and Jack will meet again to finish what they started.
And there you have it. Samurai Jack, the premiere movie, was and still is a great way to start the series. With a style that allows its visuals to tell the story rather than exposition, a well-paced runtime that successfully tells Jack's backstory while managing to set him up as a character, and action scenes that are some of the best I've ever seen, there's just nothing wrong with this pilot at all. If you are new to the show, start here and continue on from there. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Now we've got much to cover now, so join me next time when I review Episode 4. Now just remember this, folks. I don't do this show for praise, recognition, approval, or anything like that. No, I do it because I want to. I'm That Minnesotan Guy, bringing you all quality entertainment since 1996. Or is it 1986? I don't know. I'll see you all next time.